In 2024, Tesla lost 14% of its market share in Norway, one of the world's most advanced electric vehicle markets. At the same time, the European Union warned it would respond strongly to America's new tax policies. And Canada, in a surprising shift, started sourcing military equipment from Europe rather than the US. What's really happening between these three power centers, the US, Europe, and Canada? During a recent meeting with NATO's Secretary General, President Donald Trump harshly criticized the EU's trade policies. "We have a problem with the EU. They won't import our agricultural products or our cars, while we import millions of BMWs, Mercedes-Benz, and Volkswagens." Trade between the US and EU exceeds $1.2 trillion annually. The EU maintains barriers against US agriculture and automobiles. The US remains largely open to European imports. Trump targets EU's favorable tax deals with Apple, labeling it a financial battle. Trump threatens additional tariffs, exacerbating tensions with major EU economies like Germany and France. Tesla, a symbol of American innovation, faces unprecedented criticism from European consumers and investors. In Denmark, the academic pension fund sold all Tesla shares due to union labor agreement refusals, poor governance, and Musk's controversial politics. Pension Denmark withdrew 400 million kroner after Tesla rejected labor agreements in Sweden, sparking widespread strikes. Service centers, transport hubs, and inspection points halted handling Tesla vehicles, severely disrupting Tesla's operations. Elon Musk's political remarks significantly harmed Tesla in Europe. Musk supported far-right parties such as Germany's AfD, UK's Reform Party, and controversial figures in Italy and Romania. Tesla's Norwegian market share dropped dramatically from 21.7% to 7.4% within 1 year. Positive opinions of Tesla fell from 19% to 11%. Negative opinions rose from 47% to 63%. In the UK, 59% of EV consumers refused to buy Tesla due to Musk's polarizing statements. European regulatory scrutiny on Tesla intensified, citing consumer safety and data protection concerns. Tesla struggles with brand reputation and labor issues, losing ground to competitors. Volkswagen, Toyota, and China's BYD introduced competitively priced models. Tesla criticized for delays in affordable model launches, losing edge to favored local brands. European manufacturers aggressively expanded EV production, benefiting from favorable policies and consumer loyalty. Canada is quietly forming a new economic and defense alliance with Europe. Foreign Minister Melanie Joly confirmed Canada's final talks to purchase European military equipment, including Sweden's Saab Gripen jets. Aim: reduce dependency on US defense supplies amid trade policy uncertainties. EU-Canada Free Trade Agreement. CETA increased bilateral trade by 60% since 2017. Canada seeks to lessen dependence on the US, currently 75% of its exports. Enhanced Canada-EU collaborations extend to research, technology, and sustainable energy sectors, marking a strategic pivot from traditional US partnerships. Facing new US tariffs, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen stated, "If the EU is targeted by unfair trade practices, we will respond strongly." Europe considers retaliatory tariffs targeting products from pro-Washington US states. The action aims to defend fair trade and communicate clearly that Europe will not tolerate protectionist moves. EU leaders indicate readiness to strengthen economic cooperation with allies like Canada, Japan, and South Korea to counterbalance US policies. Are these shifts merely the beginning of a major realignment in the global economic order, one that increasingly sidelines the US as Europe and Canada forge new alliances? Stay tuned, because what happens next could completely reshape your understanding of the global economy. Trump doubles tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, and even suggests making Canada the 51st state? Canada's response will shock you. 1. US tariff hikes. A power move or a big mistake? Trump's 50% tariff on Canadian steel and aluminum is meant to protect American industries. But here's the truth. A report from the US National Economic Council shows that this move has already pushed domestic production costs up by 10 to 15%, making American businesses less competitive worldwide. And it gets worse. US automakers, machinery manufacturers, and construction companies rely on Canadian metals, and now they're facing a supply chain crisis. The American construction industry warns that material costs could skyrocket by 20%, leading to higher housing prices and stalled infrastructure projects. So here's the big question. Did Trump just make a massive mistake? Keep watching. Canada's payback is about to shake things up. 2. Canada strikes back. Power cuts and a direct hit to Elon Musk. Canada isn't holding back. Ontario Premier Doug Ford is now threatening to cut electricity exports to the US, a move that could spike energy prices by 15 to 20% in states like New York, Vermont, and Minnesota, which rely heavily on Canadian power.
We need to sit down, work together, and land a fair deal. a deal that gives businesses the confidence to invest, a deal that gives workers the security they need and deserve. Until then, Ontario will keep up the fight. We will apply maximum pressure to maximize our leverage. That's why today we're moving forward with a 25% surcharge on electricity exports. For the 1.5 million American homes and businesses that Ontario powers, homes and businesses in Minnesota, Michigan, and New York.
But here's where it really hurts. Canada is considering terminating its contract with Elon Musk's Starlink, a major setback for the billionaire's satellite internet expansion. If this happens, millions of people in rural areas across the US and Canada could lose access to high-speed internet. This is Canada's message. They're not backing down. 3. The US boycott, billions in losses for American businesses. This trade war isn't just playing out between governments. It's hitting the real economy. Canadian travel to the US has collapsed by over 40%, costing the American tourism industry billions. Tourist-heavy states like Florida, California, and Nevada are losing huge revenue, and the damage doesn't stop there. Canadian businesses are now cutting imports from the US, shifting to Europe and Japan instead. Some of America's biggest brands, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Walmart, are feeling the pain, with Canadian sales dropping 8 to 12%. American companies are bleeding money, and Canada is just getting started. 4. China moves in, a massive win for Beijing. While US-Canada relations collapse, China is stepping in, fast. According to Canada's Ministry of Finance, Canadian oil exports to China have surged by 25%, making Beijing a strategic alternative to the US, and it's not just oil. China is buying up Canadian wheat, beef, and lumber, key exports that used to flow south to the US. If this trend continues, China could replace the US as Canada's #1 trading partner within 5 years. So here's the real question. Did Trump just hand Canada over to China on a silver platter? 5th, long-term impact. Who's going to feel the pain? A University of Toronto study predicts that this trade war could shrink Canada's GDP by 0.5%, but the US could take an even bigger hit, losing up to 1% due to rising costs and massive supply chain disruptions. And investors, they're already panicking. The S&P 500 plunged 3% after Trump's tariff announcement, while Canada's TSX index held strong, thanks to its shift towards Asia. If this war drags on, both economies will suffer huge losses, but the US may take the biggest hit. So what happens next? Will Trump back down, or is Canada done relying on the US? Stay tuned. This economic war is far from over. Can't imagine a world-famous name facing an awkward situation live on television? Chris Rock left the entire audience stunned, and Melania couldn't keep her composure. Chris Rock's subtle mockery of Trump.
Trump is not playing, man. That's right. This time is totally different. He's working with the #1 African-American in the world, the richest African-American in the world, Elon Musk.
That night, on stage, Chris Rock not only refreshed his jokes with sharp commentary about Trump, but also offered deep insights into his controversial decisions. These were not just funny stories, but reflections of the situations that had captured public attention in recent times. Trump's business failures, controversial statements, and even decisions made during public events were woven into the humor. According to a recent survey, 45% of Americans were dissatisfied with Trump's policies in 2023, which became the target of Chris Rock's subtle mockery. Rock cleverly pointed out bizarre situations from the past, from Trump trying to adjust the hurricane map to his controversial speeches. Melania reportedly lost her composure. Melania, who is known for maintaining a calm demeanor in most public situations, had unexpected reactions after that night. Close sources revealed that she struggled to control her emotions, no longer able to maintain her usual composure. Although she didn't speak out, her body language made it clear that these moments were genuinely difficult for her. The fatigue and tension were visible on her face, making it hard to ignore her sense of helplessness in dealing with the public criticism. This was a rare moment where she couldn't hide her emotions, showing the significant impact of the situation. Trump's reaction. A predictable fury. After Chris Rock's mockery, Trump immediately reacted strongly. It was no surprise that he took to social media to share his thoughts. However, unlike some other situations, this response clearly showcased Trump's personality as someone who stands firm in any difficult situation, whether facing criticism or challenges. He did not hesitate to counter the mockery, always asserting himself and finding ways to turn the situation around in his own way. While not everyone may agree with him, his reaction once again proved his consistency and leadership style.
Thank you very much. Okay, but before we even get started, let's hey, the elephant in the room. President Trump's in the hospital from COVID. And I just want to say my heart goes out to COVID.
Mocking Trump's notable situations. When it comes to Trump, we can't forget the special situations he's created. His strange statements and controversial decisions have become integral parts of the stories shared widely. Chris Rock skillfully incorporated these moments into his humor. From the infamous disinfectant comment to surprising decisions about international events, Trump's legacy and the stories around it. People often talk about a leader's legacy, but Trump's legacy has left a particularly unique mark. The decisions he made, whether controversial or not, have created a distinct image, and the public's reaction has proven this. According to a Pew Research report, dissatisfaction with Trump's policies has risen to over 60% in certain areas. Although there were difficulties in fulfilling some commitments, he still maintained a significant influence. The internet's reaction. As usual, the internet didn't miss the chance to create parody videos and memes about the notable situations. The videos about Trump quickly went viral on social media, attracting millions of shares and comments. The video about Trump received over 1 million shares on Twitter, showing the great public interest in this situation. Melania's role in the scene. Melania, though rarely showing emotions, cannot be ignored in this situation. Despite moments that seemed tired or uncomfortable, she kept her composure. In contrast to her husband's optimistic speeches, Melania increasingly appeared reserved and did not engage in public debates. This led the public to wonder whether she is facing many unspoken challenges. The future of Trump and Melania. Could this be the end of the tension between Trump and Melania? Will the couple continue their roles in this never-ending drama? Stay tuned for more in the video to understand the issue better. The US has maintained a 25% tariff on Canadian steel and aluminum. In response, Canada imposed retaliatory tariffs worth $2.7 billion on a wide range of US products, disrupting the auto industry, consumer goods, and energy sectors. What are the consequences? Rising car prices, billions lost in the US coal industry, and severe supply chain disruptions. Who will bear the greater losses, Canada or the US? Canada has not only responded with tariffs, but has also implemented strategic economic measures across various levels. Government of Canada's countermeasures 25% tariff on US steel and aluminum, causing an estimated $1.1 billion in losses for US businesses. Tariffs on sporting goods, computers, electronics, and household appliances, affecting $1.6 billion worth of U.S. exports. Actions taken by Canadian provinces. Ontario banned U.S. liquor from its government-regulated retail system, impacting major brands like Jack Daniel's and Jim Beam. Quebec prioritized domestic suppliers and government contracts, reducing reliance on U.S. imports. Alberta diversified its supply chain, seeking imports from the EU, Japan, and South Korea instead of the U.S. The goal? Reduce dependence on U.S. imports and apply economic pressure on American businesses. Can the U.S. withstand this economic squeeze? The U.S. auto industry heavily depends on Canadian steel and aluminum, and now it's facing serious setbacks. 80% of steel and aluminum used in U.S. auto manufacturing comes from Canada. Higher raw material costs could increase the price of a Ford F-150 by $400 to $600. Major U.S. automakers hit hard. Ford, facing $1.2 billion in additional costs per year if tariffs persist. General Motors, GM, expected to absorb $800 million in extra costs annually. Tesla could see car prices rise by $1,000 per unit due to increased aluminum costs. Ripple effects on supply chains. Over 10,000 jobs in Detroit's auto industry could be at risk if manufacturers are forced to cut production. Consumers will feel the impact, with rising vehicle prices potentially reducing demand and slowing the economy. If the trade war drags on, U.S. car prices could increase by 5 to 10% in 2025. One of Canada's most damaging moves was blocking U.S. coal exports through British Columbia ports, directly hitting the American coal industry. 11.7 million tons of U.S. thermal coal are exported through Canada each year, valued at over $1.5 billion. 65% of U.S. coal exports to Asia rely on Canadian ports, mainly serving China, Japan, and South Korea. Major consequences. Transportation costs could rise by at least 30% as U.S. coal companies search for alternative ports, losing market share to competitors like Australia and Indonesia, which have lower shipping costs. Montana and Wyoming economies could lose over $500 million per year due to declining coal exports. Wider economic impact. Thousands of jobs in the U.S. coal industry could be lost, particularly in Wyoming and Montana. U.S. coal companies face potential closures, leading to financial turmoil in coal-dependent regions. If Canada holds its stance, the U.S. could lose billions in coal revenue in the coming years. The US-Canada trade war is inflicting heavy economic damage on both sides. The US auto industry struggles with rising material costs. The US coal industry is losing a critical export route to Asia. Canada is aggressively diversifying its supply chain to reduce reliance on US goods. If tensions continue, the US economy could lose tens of billions of dollars in 2025. Who do you think will suffer more, Canada or the US? Don't leave yet. The following information may be useful to you. Is Trump planning to annex Canada and take over Greenland? The truth behind his shocking proposals. Donald Trump just held a press conference at the White House. He talked about annexing Canada, taking over Greenland, and even asking NATO for help. But that wasn't all. Trump also openly admitted how he manipulates voters using social issues. What do these statements really mean? Trump wants to annex Canada. A shocking statement or a real plan? During the press conference, Trump suddenly declared, Canada only makes sense as a US state. It would be one of the greatest states. He argued that the border between the US and Canada is just an artificial line, and that merging the two countries would make America perfect. But is this idea even realistic? Canada is an independent nation with its own government and a strong economy. There is no indication that Canada has any desire to become part of the US. Such a move could spark serious diplomatic conflicts. Is this a real plan or just a statement designed to grab attention? Trump wants to take over Greenland and asks NATO for help. After Canada, Trump shifted his focus to Greenland. We need Greenland for national security. NATO might have to get involved. But why is Trump so interested in Greenland? Greenland holds a key strategic position in the Arctic. It is rich in valuable resources, particularly rare earth minerals, which are crucial for technology industries. Back in 2019, Trump had already proposed buying Greenland from Denmark, only to be flatly rejected. Now, he's bringing it up again, this time mentioning NATO's role. Could this signal a much larger plan? Trump's tariff policies. Who is really affected? Trump didn't just talk about annexing territories, he also brought up imposing high tariffs on Canada. We don't need Canada, they need us. We don't need their lumber, their energy, or their cars. But is this really true? Canada is one of the US's largest trading partners. Many American businesses rely on Canadian resources. High tariffs could significantly increase prices, directly impacting American consumers. However, when asked about these concerns, Trump simply replied, "People will be much richer than they are now." Is this a realistic economic prediction or just an attempt to reassure the public? Trump openly admits to manipulating voters with social issues. One of the most striking moments of the press conference was when Trump revealed his strategy for influencing voters. He stated, "Men competing in women's sports, I want them to keep arguing about it. I told Republicans, don't bring it up now, just drop it a week before the election, that's all you need." What does this statement reveal? Trump doesn't actually care about the issue. He sees it as a political tool. He uses social controversies to manipulate voters and steer them in his favor. If this is how Trump runs his campaign, how many other issues are being used in the same way? Trump's approach to NATO, strengthening or undermining alliances. Instead of reinforcing NATO's core mission, Trump suggested using the alliance for his own territorial ambitions. NATO might have to get involved in Greenland. We really need it for national security. But why focus on Greenland while ignoring Ukraine? Rather than strengthening ties with allies, Trump criticized the European Union, calling it very nasty and unfair to America. By shifting NATO's focus and attacking allies, is Trump isolating the US on the world stage? Does Trump actually care about the economy? A reporter asked, "Many small businesses in America are worried about your tariff policies. Can you reassure them?" Trump's response, "They will be richer than ever." But what does reality show? The stock market is highly volatile. Rising prices are hurting working-class Americans. Major companies are cutting jobs, raising fears of a recession. If Trump truly believes people will become richer, why are there growing signs of economic decline? Could these just be random statements, or do they hint at something much bigger? Keep watching to discover more shocking insights.